If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, May the 21st, 2024 edition of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and we are absolutely delighted to have you aboard for these 2 hours. Thank you so much for tuning in as the callers are beginning to call. I can see the whiteboard is moving up with callers that are online just listening and in the chat room. Oh, yeah, Emery's in there. That's the excerpt. I did not pronounce it correctly. And say Shata is in the house. I did not pronounce that correctly, but nevertheless, you're in. Thank you for the information and the sayings that you put out, statements. We are, again, delighted to have you in for today's program. Justice Warrior just joined. Thank you, Justice Warrior. Yes. And we would like for you to be a participant in today's show, and you can do that by calling 516-453-9921. And if you have something that you'd want to contribute to the show, you can just press the number 1 button and wait for the call screener to come on, and then give the call screener your name, and then that will come up on my board, and I can read your name, hopefully not butcher it as I have done already with the people in some of the people in the chat room. But make sure you do that, and then be brief in your comment or statement that you want to make, and then we can do that. And you can do that by calling, again, 516-453-9921 and press the number 1 button. For those new to the show, if you are a new caller, you can do the same thing, but make sure that you tell the call screener that you are a new caller, and we have a priority status waiting for you so that you will be heard. Now, you can join the chat room, as I had previously mentioned about the chatters. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com. When you do that, you want to click on where it says Programs. And the program, when you get that, then menu of shows will come up, shows, and you want the Produce Justice show. And when you click on that, then the chat room is available for you. And lastly, you can go to my Gmail address, which is the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, MRBOBBY, at gmail.com. And you can put your question on there. And please don't write me a novel because radio, I cannot read all of it. But state it there, and then I will read it and let you know when the date and time I have Mr. Fuller answer that question. And speaking of Gmails, listen, I have a lot of Gmails. So if you write me or when you write me, I may not get to it on today's program, but at some point in time I will get to it because the callers have the priority. The callers come first. And then when we have extra time or the call volume is not as heavy, then I can read some of the Gmails and have Mr. Fuller address your concerns. So don't get angry, don't get mad, don't get upset. That's just the way radio is. We only have a 2-hour window, so we have to try and get as much in as we possibly can. And speaking of that, listen, there's only so much that I can do. I'm basically a facilitator. So when you call me and request certain things, there are things that I cannot do. However, if you do have a concern or something, all you have to do is use this address, which is contact@producejustice.com, and then state your case or comment or whatever you need to do, and they will try to handle that for you. All right, that address again is contact@producejustice.com, and they will try to handle the request that you come in. Mr. Bobby cannot do that for you, but I can direct you to where you might need to be. Okay, with that being said, let's get on with today's program. Let me present to someone and feature two others, Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, as I customarily start off by saying good morning and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay. Man, sounding real strong this morning. Good. Okay, we have a feature that we have here that we entitled The Thoughts and Expressions on the Mind of Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, today being Tuesday, the 21st of May, 2024. What is on your mind this morning?
I've been thinking about reparations and what a mess I perceive it to be in everything that's been proposed so far that I have heard about. That is unworkable the way that I'm hearing, from what I'm hearing. Excuse me. Unworkable from everything I've heard about so far. People probably have sent in all kinds of, to legislators and whatnot, proposals. But I think that so-called reparations of any kind for what has happened to people of color under the system of white supremacy has got to include benefits for white people. Otherwise, it's not going to work. All it's going to do is increase a whole lot of what? Bitterness. I mean, lots of it, tons of it. And we'll be just fighting about it and talking about more and more fights all down through the millennia to come. If white people don't see where, well, in other words, you're just going to look out for them and not do anything for us when a lot of us didn't have anything to do with it. And that includes the people who are not telling the truth, which will be millions of them, all right? But they will be very dissatisfied about the whole thing. We ought to know that, just using common sense. We ought to know that. When I say we, I mean everybody who's talking about reparations. It should be, I mean, the program should include, in some kind of way, benefits for white people. Because we're talking about something that's spread worldwide. So you want a system that's sound and a system that everybody is willing to cooperate. Everybody who has what you call, quote, unquote, goodwill. So I'm thinking since the Constitution of the United States is a model for the entire world, and by extension, the compensatory code written by me, all right, and other people who are doing things under other titles and whatnot that has to do with benefits for everybody, because that's what the world has got to be anyway. So we don't want to get into a whole lot of stuff about cancel culture and all this. We'll just say we're going to put it under, and I gave a title to it, Universal Social Security Corps. Like we have the Peace Corps, the Marine Corps, and I looked up the word Corps a few days ago, and it fits. Corps is a part of the fabric of something that's already set up. So everybody, including white people and black people, they're on board with Social Security. Everybody I've ever talked to or heard talk.
I mean, if you start talking about taking away people's Social Security, which means that includes people on jobs where they can retire, they'll get a check. I mean, they just don't work themselves to death like in the old days and fall over at the workplace. That's when you stop working. You never stop working. I mean, it reaches a point where you want to do a few things that you want to do, okay? But if you're just working all the time, your fingers to the bone, and a lot of white people have done that. Even people who were enslavers, a lot of them had to work. I mean, not all of them were sitting in the house just doing nothing but sipping tea all day, while other people did the heavy lifting. And that includes even the white people whose job was to just crack the whip over black people on the plantations. And they died with that job, but got too old to do it anymore, and then couldn't stand up to whip anybody because they'd gotten too old to do it. But what kind of Social Security did they get? So we're talking about a thing called justice, and we're talking about the best way to get it. Now, a lot of people naturally will say, oh, white people had everything, don't give them nothing. No, it's not going to work. We've got to have white people in on it. So we have a system that's already in place that black people, I know I have, benefit from it. So just expand that system. That's what it comes down to. It's called Social Security. And it comes in different forms for different people and all like that. But just expand it on a world scale, because that's the way it's got to be. And also, everybody's going to have to participate in a constructive manner, meaning black people. But in order for black people who are objecting to what I'm saying we will have options under that same umbrella. Universal Social Security Corps. That's the Marine Corps and all like that, but you'll have a Universal Social Security Corps. It will be expanded Social Security. And the 4 elements, the basic elements, will be health, housing, education, and transportation. That will be the focus. I call it the big 4. Now, so some black people will say, no, you're definitely going down the wrong track. I want cash, for one thing. And a lot of people have told me that, in programs and all like that. You're talking about black people being irresponsible. No, I want cash. I don't want no kind of program of nothing. Just give me a check. Okay. So, why not just compromise on that? Because that's worthy of paying attention to. So a part of the system would be you would have options. Those who want checks would get checks. In other words, just give me a check. And if I don't know what to do with the money, and I run out, that's me. All on me, because I ain't getting nothing else. I get my check, and once that's gone, that's it. And I'm satisfied with it, because I know what to do with money. A lot of black people are saying that. I know how to handle money once I get it. So you have that program for those who want money. But I'm saying a lot of black people, including myself, I don't want cash money. I want the things that money will buy. I'm going to repeat that. The things that money will buy. And what's the 4 biggest things? Health, housing, education, transportation. from now on. There's no such thing as a place to stay that I'm looking for. That's built into the Social Security system. I'll always have a place to stay. That's the deal. As a part of the reparations and the universal Social Security core. Because everybody, including white people, should have a place to go when the sun goes down. Guaranteed. Worldwide. Not doing like they're doing over there in the Middle East and the Ukraine and places like that. Tearing up places to stay, where people are all out in the streets living in tents and whatnot, and then having to move every 5 or 10 minutes. That's the kind of world we want forever? No. We should be, we don't need the Peace Corps and all that. We should scrap all these and put them under the umbrella of what I say, Universal Social Security Corps. Universal, meaning all over the world. It will be one of the biggest agencies worldwide, the so-called United Nations, sitting there doing all that squabbling they do, but that'll be what will be presented to them. That we got the guarantee for everybody. In repairing, reparations just means repairing the damage that's done.
Yes, sir.
And so if you have a program that covers health, the big four, I call it, health, housing, education, and when I say education, I don't mean just sitting there teaching any kind of old stuff. I'm talking about when you go to school every day, when you come out of there, you have learned something about something you can do that will make money and do everything else that you need done. Every day, the curriculum be set up like that, so that every day when you come out of school, what that school is.
Okay, the big
you
four.
You will have learned something. It'll be just that sophisticated in this AI age. You will have learned something that you can actually use that'll generate money and comfort and all what they call the good things in life every day. You come out of a school knowing something like that. Okay.
All right, the big four. That's been on your mind.
And transportation. That's the fourth.
Transportation. Okay.
And the main thing under health, I want to emphasize this.
Okay.
Is food. Black people can get on that right away. I look at these food programs. I mean, they're teaching people how to be unhealthy like you wouldn't believe. Look at what the food is about. I mean, let's look at these health shows on television. I do. And I'm looking at all this white flour. I'm bragging about it. And all of the experts in health say that's one of the most poisonous things you can put in a person's body. But everything, the first thing they say, well, you lay out the white flour, and then you bring in the meats for the pizza. What kind of meats? Healthy meats? All meat ain't something you should be eating. But that's what they bring in, and then they pile in a whole bunch of stuff that's greasy, and just pile it up there. And it looks good, and it tastes wonderful. But look at our health situation, particularly black people, and whole millions of white people. So I'm just putting something out now.
Okay, I can tell it's been on your mind. Yeah, okay.
Yes, this is what's on my mind, and I think it is a solution to a whole lot of problems, and a part of education. Stop worshiping death. I mean, get the movie people to get in on it. Stop. Every time I flip my channel, all I see is, well, we're going to have to break in now because we had another murder, and we want to spend about 2 hours talking about that. Another murder. Murder. And they glorify it. And that's all that a generation now, black people in the Northwestern Hemisphere, the younger people especially, are coming up with So what you do is get 2 or 3 guns and just run around all day murdering people. And that's what life is all about. Look at it and tell the truth about it. That's what we are taught. That's not happening accidentally. You act the way that you are taught. And we are taught to worship murder.
Okay. I see a lot on your mind this morning. Okay. 516-453-9921 is the number you call to get in contact with the show. Justice Warrior, why don't you call in with that with your comment that you wrote on in the chat room? I think that would be best said if you said that. So call in and tell the call screener who you are, and we can get you on here because it's really kind of long for me to read it, but it's very compelling. So do that. Okay, again, 516-453-9921. All right, Mr. Fuller always starts off the programs, which goes over many people's head, but you got to keep this in mind. He says, if you do not understand white supremacy, racism, and he has that in parentheses, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. You have to keep that in mind. Please keep that in mind. Okay, I was going to go to a Gmail, but I think what I'll do is I'll do this. I'll go to D.C., and Josh, get ready. Get ready, Josh. Here we go, if this is working properly. Okay, Josh in D.C. is on. What is your question for Mr. Fuller? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I wanted to add a quick VGQ, and then my question would be a yes or no framed question. My VGQ is I want to thank Mr. Fuller. I called in a couple of years ago, asked a question about employment, and he referenced his book, and I read, and his logic made sense, so I just wanted to thank him for that. I just picked the job that paid me the most money. My question is, trying to, follow logic and just thinking that, in the area of activity of sex, I was wondering if, the term flogging, which was a common practice during the enslaved period, when the so-called slave master would get the biggest, largest, blackest individual and announce to everyone that he was not homosexual, but he was about to participate in a homosexual act on this person to prove a point to everyone. Is that an example of, using the area of sexuality on a, greater scale to dominate and mistreat people?
Sure. It's the thing that the serious-minded, deep-thinking white supremacists say that that's going to help them in a huge way to perpetuate the system of white supremacy, in other words, to promote it and keep it forever. Say, get these black females who are becoming more and more sophisticated, they're increasing their knowledge and whatnot, get them to all want to be males. I don't care how you do it. Get the black females to want to be males, wearing army boots and all that, all right? Because the black male, he's just about so out of it, and they know that. They give birth to him, and before he stays 18 years old, he's dead. And they got 3 more sons coming right behind him. When he gets to be 14, 15, 18, he's dead. That's where he's headed. all right, because they're killing each other. But that only goes so far. Most black people are not killing each other, okay? All right. So what are most black people doing? They're just being empty-headed and having no goals at all because nobody's setting any goals for them, okay? What kind of goal can you set? They say, well, be successful. Well, what is that? And how do you become that success? More questions than answers. You know, we ask questions all the time. We get no answers. Everybody comes up empty. Everybody writes a book. But when it comes, I was just looking at 2 or 3 white people over the period of the last few weeks who have written books about race. But when it comes to the doing part, they say, well, what do you have in this book about what black people should do? Well, I don't have anything like that. But I can write a 2,000-page book on how awful everything is. I'll help you black people do that. But when it comes to any kind of suggestion about what do you do about it to solve the race problem, oh, I don't have anything, you know. I mean, I'll hint at a few things, but out of a 2,000-page book, they'll have about a half a page on, well, we got to love each other. End of story. After 2,000 pages. I don't need that type of advice. I know how awful everything is. We've already documented that and need to be continuing to document that, how awful everything is. Don't cancel out history. But that's the main thing. What do you do about it each and every day when you get up in the morning? What does a black person anywhere on the planet do? D-O, do. That will work by the end of the day, and that black person, each and every one of them, is doing better at the end of this day and every other day that they started the day with. How about that? That you're better off, much better off, at the end of each day, 5 o'clock in the evening, everywhere on the planet, better off, maybe twice as better than you were the day before. How about that as a formula? We got artificial intelligence and all like that. And what I'm saying is the first thing is health. Because if you don't have health, and health is connected with food, like somebody said, let your food be your medicine. Many doctors have said that, and they're correct. But doctors, they got a lot of pressure on doctors. Don't mention nothing about food. And let's tell it like it is, a lot of hospital food ain't really food. It's chemicals. I've been in the hospital. Now, I'm not criticizing the people at the hospital. They don't make this. But the people who sell stuff, pharmaceutical companies, to tell the truth, they're in on the food business too. I mean, just look at what you eat when you go to the hospital. Because the people demand it, for one thing. I don't want to eat this hospital food. That's what we call it. When people started trying to change it in the old days, there's lettuce and tomatoes. I don't want to eat this. Bring me some pizza. Now, the question is, does pizza improve your health or does it harm it? Yes or no? That's just one food. I'm not singling out just pizza, but everything. I walk past restaurants and all like that. I see all those fries. I mean, you're paying a fancy price for it, but it's French fries. Fried food, potatoes, heavy with salt. Question is it improving your health or is it ruining it? And it tastes good. Just talking about some French fries right now. I want some. Me, I'm talking about it. But if I raise the question, is it improving my health or is it destroying it? I have to tell the truth from all the people who have, who have studied this type of thing.
Okay.
And they say, no, vegetables. I mean, that's how it was in the beginning. People who are primitive people have excellent teeth and everything. Why? They're not eating all that candy that's right in front of every grocery store that you go in. What do you first see? You see candy and cake and potato chips.
And the truth is, we got to leave it right there because we're up against the break. All right, thank you, Josh, in D.C. You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And we would love for you to get in contact with the show. You can do that by calling 516-453-9921. And if you have a question, please, ma'am, please, sir, be short with it. Please be short with it because we want Mr. Fuller to understand the question. And as you can see, he uses a lot of examples to illustrate the point or illustrate the point for some people that he's trying to make. And that is in order to cut down on confusion. And some people don't like for him to do that like that, but that's his style, so that's what he does. So you got to keep that in mind. So be brief with your question to give him time to answer your question or your VGQ. All righty? We can do that. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, MrBobby@gmail.com, and I will make sure or try to get it read, maybe not on this show, but on another show, and I will let you know. And then you can join the chat room. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com. All right? You want to click on where it says programs. When you click that on, then a menu or the shows will come up, and you want the Produce Justice show. That's the one you get, and you get all the information right there. Now, the books you can also get at producejustice.com. Producejustice.com, and you need to, I'm suggesting that you need to get that book. It's like an operating manual that you can refer to for different questions that come up. In particular, when you open up that book, you will see this statement, which I've read and which I will continue to read, which is this. If you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Mr. Neely Fuller wrote that. Think about that. Use the logic behind that, and then act upon that. Justice Warrior, I'm going to give you, or have Robert give you a priority status, because what you said in the chat room is important, and I'm suggesting that you can call in, and then we'll go from there, because that needs to be said, or needs to be heard. Okay. So we'll try to do that. Thank you, Jane Lance. I'll try to get to you also, too. Okay, and the person in the area code 254, please give the call screener your name so that Mr. Bobby can do it. Okay, Corey, I'm going to try to get to you after this. Mr. Fuller, this is from, let's see, who is this from? This is from Ross, out in California. It says this. As a black male victim of white supremacy racism, I ask an undoubtedly white-appearing woman if she was white or not. Things she was saying led to that question. She refused to answer yes or no and became very illogical in her statements and confusing, even accusing me of offending her by saying, I now suspect she might be a racist because of her answers. Mr. Fuller, please explain the power of this one simple question from a black person to a white person. Are you white or not, or non-white?
Yes. Questions, all questions are powerful. Black people should be, chomping at the bit about asking questions. I mean, when I say questions, I don't mean 2 or 3. I mean 2 or 3,000 in every situation. Stretch it as long as you can. Stretch it out. Question, question, question. Avoid making statements about anything until you've asked a lot of questions. And when you get answers to questions, ask some more questions. And then remember what the answers were. That's real important, because the white supremacists are super slick at sounding like they're answering your question, but they're really not. Boy, do they know how to do that, and do they pull it off every day, every minute almost. I mean, they'll sound great when they're talking, but after 2 hours of talk, everybody get up grinning, shuffling their papers and putting them back in the briefcases and whatnot. That was a good meeting. Well, wait a minute. What did you learn that you can use? What questions were answered that now you can use it? That's the giveaway. I've been to meetings and whatnot, and I listened very carefully. I said, you know what? They did a whole lot of beautiful talking, and everybody, got to the place where it's easy to get black people laughing. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take much. Or you choose in one extreme to the other. Black people become extremely angry, and that includes council people and people in government. You've seen quite a bit of that lately. We get into our ghetto mode, which means to be angry and start shouting, and then start name calling and all that type of stuff. Stop doing that. Just keep asking questions. Everything will come to you. Just like the caller is saying, I'm answering that question. Yeah, just keep doing it. Just say, why are you angry? First of all, why are you angry? Or if she says, you're insulting me, and then that calls for another question, a logical question. So you always go by the last thing that they said. So she asked the question, why are you insulting me? And my answer would be, I didn't think I was insulting you by asking a question. Am I insulting you by asking a question? See, all I have to do is just stay in the question lane. That's real important. I mean, because there's a great temptation to start making statements, and that's where the trap is. Once you start talking about, well, are you trying to say that I'm not intelligent, or something like that? But that's a question which you can ask, but stay in the question lane where they will do the talking and not get into the thing about this back and forth, because the white supremacists are trying to make you look guilty by asking questions. You're never guilty by asking a question. Stay in the question lane and stay away from statements. They want you to start making statements. Then that's when they become, in the conversation, they're the leaders. Once that black person started making statements, then the white person started questioning you. That gives them the power. Whomever is asking the questions has the power. Don't forget that. Ever.
Okay.
Whomever is asking the questions has the most power.
Okay. All right. So now you have that. Listen, people, these are suggestions. I'm going to try not to make a statement, but these are suggestions, particularly for those who are in the chat room. Some of you ask very provocative questions. That's good. And you want Mr. Fuller to answer your questions, okay? And okay, that's all right. But here's a question as a suggestion. What are you going to do about it where you're at right now? What are you going to do about it? This is where the book comes in. This is not a prep for the book, but this is why the book is, one of the reasons why the book is there, for you to refer to the suggestions that are in the book being the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Mr. Fuller, so that when you have a question or don't know what to do or what to do, you can refer to the book. Now, I'm not telling you that. These are just suggestions. I'm trying to be very, very careful here. What are you going to do about it where you are at right now? What are you going to do about it? And then if you don't know, then you can pick up the book and find out where the book is relevant to you at, and then come up with suggestions for yourself, since you may not be able to get through, and I may not get to your Gmail or whatever. What are you going to do? Now, remember, this is just a suggestion. I'm not telling you what to do. Okay? Please keep that in mind and be very, very careful about that kind of stuff. All right, let's do this, and then, Corey, I'm going to try to get to you. David asked a question for you, Mr. Fuller, and then I gave him some information. But here's his question. He says it's a very important question that he thinks that all would benefit knowing the answer to this. This is what he says. Mr. Fuller, how should we treat a black person who's, quote, off code, end of quote, with us and is, quote, on code, end of quote, with the white supremacist doing something that we know will eventually harm us?
Questions and answers. And the basic question is, well, you got 4 that's listed indirectly. Everybody wants something. That comes under the 4 wants, page 171, 172 in the 2016 edition of the textbook. And it's about the 4 wants. Now, everybody on the planet wants something. And when I say everybody, that includes all the animals. All creatures want something. And they want it all the time. Every minute of the day, you want something. You want, why did the chicken cross the road? That's a question. To get to the other side. Why did the chicken want to cross the road to get to the other side? Because that's where the cornfield is. Why did the chicken cross the road to get to the other side to get to where the cornfield is? Because there was no corn. When you come up with an answer, there was no corn on the side of the road where the chicken was. That's why the chicken crossed the road where the cornfield was, because chickens like to eat corn. So you keep asking questions, you get answers. That's what a scientist does. And a scientist is asking questions when they're looking at something under a microscope. That's what that person is doing. That's what inventors do. Inventors, somebody looked up at the sky and saw objects flying up there with what they call wings, and say, I wonder if I can do that. That's a question. And it's the same way. Black people should be questioning people. And so you ask, homeboy wants to carry around that gun all day. Well, the record has shown that if you carry a gun all the time, you'll be tempted to use it. And usually the younger you are, the faster you'll use it too. Because you carried it. You know that you can be in command of something. You know that. You stand there on the subway platform and say, you know what? I can kill everybody right around here. All these people who are just standing there waiting on the next car. it's just about 6 of them. I got 18 bullets in this 9mm, and I can kill all 6 of these people. Okay? And that's why we do it. Just do it, you know. Cars coming. Say, I'm gonna shoot all 6 of them, and then I'm gonna run, and hope that they don't catch me.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why we do it, and so we kill them. White people do it too.
Yes,
I mean,
they do. They do.
Right, a whole lot of them do that.
Okay.
You know, keeping score. I hope I didn't get too far away from the question.
No, that's okay. You keep on using your examples. They'll get used to it.
Right.
Okay.
I'm trying to give a framework of, you know, what we're dealing with. Okay.
Okay. Now, without giving out any name, because I don't want to embarrass anybody or anything like that, and I'm trying to be careful, maybe even political. But here is the thing. This is just a suggestion to the person who wrote this. If you have been listening to the program, and I don't recognize your name, but Mr. Fuller has addressed this issue of Planned Parenthood before. And instead of wishing that Mr. Fuller would address this question, as a suggestion, not to offend you, but what are you going to do about the genocide of black babies through Planned Parenthood? What are you going to do about that? And some of these suggestions might be in the a book, which is the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept that he has written. That's why it's important to get that book so that you can begin to work. See, united, but united independent. See, so as a suggestion, again, not to offend you, what are you going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? Okay? About that issue. That way, you know, your name is not put out there, and then maybe that can be compelling for you to address that question. The person in the 404 prefix, please give your name to the call screener, and then we'll move on. We'll move on to Milwaukee. Okay, Corey, you're up, and thank you for waiting. You're patient. You waited. Here it is. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning. Wait a minute. Okay, good morning, Corey.
Good morning, Grand Rising, Mr. Bobby and Mr.
Yes,
Fuller.
Sir.
Mr. Fuller, my question is concerning constructive communication. In the code book, you refer to hard communication and soft communication being the two basic forms of communication. And I just quickly want to say that I want to summarize what you have written for people who don't have the book. Hard communication, it's saying what is absolutely necessary in order to reveal truth, promote justice or correctness, or writing that to one another. Soft communication, the goal is the same thing, to reveal truth, promote justice or correctness, but it's saying what may seem to be trivial or casual or touching is another form of soft communication. Mr. Fuller, my question is, as a victim of white supremacy racism, in my attempts to have constructive communication with some fellow victims for the purpose of accomplishing a mutual constructive goal, when this person does not respond or does not engage in the answering of the questions, is the codified response to basically just leave it alone? Because I can't ask more questions to a person who won't respond to my constructive question.
Yes, you can. That's the answer. You ask them, first of all, am I permitted to ask you questions? See, that's a question.
And Mr. Fuller, and if they never, if they never answer, though, if they never respond to any question through the form of writing, for example.
Yes, you want to know if it's okay for you to ask them questions. And they'll tell you. I guess. That's been my experience. And, but if you get an experience, that says, they say, I don't want you to ask me no questions. Oh, okay. There's no problem there. So you just be silent and listen to them talk. But don't ask them no questions. And so you'll most likely wind up not saying nothing. But you're learning something. See what I mean? You're always learning. Whether you think you are not learning, even if you think you're not learning, you're learning. You're learning about how this person that you're talking to handles a conversation. You're learning that. So you're always learning, even when you think you're not learning. And the best way to learn, really the only way to, what you call learn, is ask questions. And then when you find out that the person, and if the person just tells you outright, don't ask me any questions. Well, you can't even ask a question after that because the person said, don't ask me any questions. Now, the code says that you're always supposed to be courteous, and that's a part of courtesy to the person. So you're never discourteous. The person has told you, don't ask me any questions. So you don't. You don't ask them. Not one question after that until they tell you, well, today you can start back to asking me questions. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Brown, Miss Green, Miss Hatterfield, all right, whatever it is. Okay. Mr. Jones, right. Thank you. You thank them for it. And then you begin to ask questions. Why did you stop me from asking questions? Because you'll learn something then. Even if they don't say anything. That's an answer.
Yeah. All right, Corey. Thank you. Thank you for participation. You do a real good job. Listen, again, I'm harping on suggestion because I'm trying very hard not to tell people what to do, but suggestion. Some people, they call in and they can't. They say, I've been reading some of the things, they can't get in, and they'll call later. Okay, listen, as a suggestion, you know that when you call this number, that how Mr. Fuller operates in taking his time and putting forth suggestions. Now, he does that because the one thing that he tries to avoid is confusion. And so he takes his time by these suggestions that he makes. Now, you may not like that, but he doesn't want you to be confused because the world is already, or the people that would have already confused it through this racism, which is one of the reasons why I believe he wrote the statement at the beginning of the book. If you don't understand white supremacy, racism, what it is and how it works, everything, again, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. He's trying to help us, including me, to avoid confusion. So, in other words, all I'm saying, as a suggestion, don't give up. As a suggestion, not telling you what to do. Don't give up. Keep on. Keep on keeping on. Yeah. All righty. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Corey. All right, Talib, guess what, man? You're coming up on the end of the hour, but you know what? I'm going to get you in here. Good construction going on in Youngstown. I was reading an article about it. But go ahead. From the here he is, Talib. Do it.
Top of the morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, sir.
I do have one quick question, but I do want to run something by you. I saw something, I'm not sure who started it, but where they said the Japanese are supposedly somebody sent it to me, are paying, I'm not sure why it's specifically the brothers or just any man, but they paying the brothers to come over and impregnate the women because of their numbers are dwindling. I don't know if Mr. Fuller heard that or you heard that.
Go ahead.
I think I may have, but I'll resend it back to you.
Okay.
And also,
Go ahead.
people have to be mindful. Some of our so-called HBCUs were named after so-called white folks. So before you start, make sure you're checking everything, people. But what I want to get back to, Mr. Fuller, on the last call, you used the word common sense. Now, if I'm a doctor and I tell you, Mr. Fuller, hey, I want you to perform heart surgery and you've never done it, and I say, well, it's common sense. People can't do it. But I can't remember how long ago it was, but I do remember somebody mentioned that word common sense, and you mentioned, Mr. Fuller, I don't know what uncommon sense is. So could you revisit that for me or for the audience? Because I remember you saying that one time, but you did say use your common sense. I think I didn't listen. I should have listened to the recording from the last call, but you did use that word common sense. But I did hear in the past say you don't know what uncommon sense means. So could you kind of clarify that, if you don't mind, sir, please? And thank you, Mr. Bobby.
Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Fuller?
Well, since then, or really, I don't ever remember saying that, but I probably did, because you're saying so. So, what I mean now, of course, that's what hits my mind right now. Of course, it's not listed in my book, in the word guide, or anything else, what common sense means. But I usually mean, in my own mind, this is the way it is now. I don't know how I meant it when I said it, but common sense is you learn that, and it's sort of universal. That's what I mean by common. It's kind of, you find it among all people everywhere, and that is that water is wet and fire will burn. These are examples. And most people know this. Most people throughout the entire planet. In other words, that's commonly known. That's why I put that word common in front of it. I mean, the most primitive people in the world, the most what they call backward people, know that fire burns and water is wet. Water doesn't burn unless it's connected with fire. All right? Like boiling. Stick your hand in some boiling water. You snatch your hand back. I mean, of course, you've got sense enough to do that. You can't keep your hand just in that boiling water. I mean, unless you want to boil all the flesh off your hand. So that's an example of what I mean by common sense. That nobody has to come and teach you this. Babies know this. A baby will walk up to a hot stove and put their hand in it, if that's the first time they've done it, because they don't know what it is. But when they feel that heat, it feels unpleasant.
Yes.
Now, that baby got common sense without you saying anything. The baby will snatch his hand back.
Yes.
Or her. That's an example of what I mean by common sense.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All righty. All right, Talif, thank you. I'll keep you there. Hey, listen, we are up on the first hour, so guess what? Thank you. Thank you, callers, and thank you in the chat room, too. Yeah, we got a new person in there, Cat77. Thank you. And thank you for the people who are helping Cat to understand. You want to get this book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, by going to producejustice.com. That'll help you out, Brother Cat. That'll help you out. Or Sister Cat, whatever. Cat77, thank you. Listen, thank you for listening. Thank you for all your calls. And if you have to go, okay, hopefully you will be back next week so we can still listen and learn and participate. So, Mr. Fuller, the last word I'm going to give you in this first hour before we commence on the second hour. Your last word for the first hour is?
I want the people to keep in mind and come up with some ideas of their own about this thing that I talked about in the beginning of this program on this day, and that is the reparations program should be repairing the minds and the bodies of all people, because that's the way we're going to have to go with it.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Okay.
Yes,
all right. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. That concludes the first hour. So stay tuned for the second hour, the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, and we will be back in 7 seconds. All righty. Welcome back to the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. And thank you for listening. Listen, to get in contact with the show, all you have to do by phone is call this number, 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button so that I can call your name out, as Austin has done up in the dirty, which is called Cleveland, Ohio. But make sure you do that. And, you can ask your question or a VGQ, but please, ma'am, or please, sir, please be brief, because if you are familiar with the program, you know that Mr. Fuller uses many suggestions and many comments to illustrate the point that is trying to be made according to the question that you ask, keeping in mind that all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. And you will hear that all throughout this program. And even for further communication, you need to get in contact with this book. And this book is the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, which you can get right now at ProduceJustice.com. And that will help you with the many suggestions that he has written in this book. And hopefully we'll get a chance to have him speak about the book, during this program. You can also join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. You want to click on where it says programs, and when you do, then the program that you want is the Produce Justice Show. The Produce Justice Show. You click on that, and when you do, a box becomes available for you to enter the chat room, and I'm telling you right now, there are some outstanding conversations in there, good learning experiences, and you can even share the information that you have. You will help each other, help the community, because we're all still learning. And lastly, you can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, MRBOBBY @gmail.com. I will get it, and at some point in time, I will read it, and we can go from there. Okay. All righty. Okay. All right. Thank you there, Talif. I appreciate it. I just got that Gmail. Okay. Let's see. Mr. Fuller, I got a question from you, for you. Wait a minute. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I think I did that one. Yeah, wait a minute. Get this in order here. Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay. All right, here's a question for you, Mr. Fuller. This comes from Barry, and he says this. Mr. Bobby, would you ask Mr. Fuller, did he ever go out dancing in his early years? If so, what dances were popular at the time? This comes from Barry, Mr. Fuller, way out on the West Coast. So there you go with your dancing shoes on, Mr. Fuller. Did you ever go out dancing in your early years?
No. When I saw people dancing, I thought about it. And I asked a logical question to myself. What is this for? And I couldn't come up with an adequate answer. And so, therefore, I made no effort at all to learn how to dance.
Okay.
And
all right.
One thing I did notice is that a lot of people who did dance didn't want to be bothered with somebody who didn't dance, particularly if they were the opposite sex, because they wanted to dance. For whatever reason, someone invented something called a dance. Whether it's jitterbugging, like that was the thing when I came up, where you toss people up in the air and all that.
How about the Lindy Hop?
Or you had, among sophisticated people, quote unquote, whatever that means, ballerinas. And I always said that, I just raised a question, logical question. What is the dance for? I wasn't being scientific or anything like that in my own mind at that time, but people would just embrace each other and start moving around on the floor. And at an early age, I looked at it and I said, what is this for? What are you trying to achieve? And I couldn't come up with an adequate answer.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't thinking that much in depth at an early age. The first time I saw somebody do something called dancing. But I just couldn't take no interest in it.
Okay. All right.
And it meant that I didn't have no girlfriends either.
Okay.
That's one thing. So I got my answer through that. I mean, usually the male dances with a female. Well, that's a form of communication.
Okay.
And sometimes the female would judge you about everything on your ability to dance.
Ooh-wee, ooh-wee.
All right. So that sort of came hey, this is a real door opener for better communications in the sexual department. But I figured that out right away.
Right away, yeah.
Because one thing I noticed, that the male was dancing with the female, which is nowadays that's questionable now,
Okay, we leave that with
a whole lot of males don't want to dance with no female, and don't want to have nothing to do with no female except their mothers.
Watch out now. Watch out.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll ask Jalopy that. I love that story, Mr. Jalopy. Okay, we'll have to have you tell that story again one day. All right, back to the Gmail here. This comes from Jane. She says this, Mr. Fuller, you were discussing food earlier today, so I have a question regarding grocery shopping. I go out of my way to go grocery shopping at off hours to avoid crowds. Every time I grocery shop, it never fails. A Caucasian woman of a particular age stops me and makes unsolicited comments about the food in my cart. I have no idea why they do this. Sometimes I wear sunglasses or pretend to listen to headphones to prevent this, but it's not working. Why do you think, Mr. Fuller, these women do this? Best regards, JL.
Because they want to know. Whatever they say. And it seems like what you're saying is they ask questions about what's in your cart. And you can ask them questions. You can, if you choose to. If there's some questions you want answered. You can ask what I would do if it kept happening, because I've noticed that too. I would say, well, is there anything I should have in my cart? because I always want to learn something that's going to help me. So if somebody asks me that type of question, and I'm just thinking of this off the top of my head, you might say, to use the old cliche, if I was interested enough to find out, I would just ask them. You know, and that would be the question. That would be a constructive question. Because I'm always looking for constructive results in anything that I do. That's the bottom line. Is this conversation going to lead to something constructive? Because if it's not, then I don't want to have that conversation, period. I don't want to ever have any conversation with anybody, white or non-white, ever again in life. Unless that conversation is going to lead to a constructive result. I don't want non-constructive. I don't want conversation of any kind that is not designed to produce constructive results. That's a part of the code. That's rock solid. I can't avoid that.
Can't avoid it. Okay.
Even if I'm tempted to do it, I can't do it. That's why I say we all need a code. A code means every move that you make works for you and others and against something that shouldn't be.
Yes, sir.
Every move, every word that you say is supposed to produce a constructive result. Otherwise, don't use it.
Okay. All right. Phone lines are open. Here they are, 516-453-9921. Hey, Justice Warrior, you can call in, brother. We got a line open for you. But right now, we're going to go up to the dirty. Well, I guess that's what they used to call it, but they've cleaned up, especially in the flat area up there in Cleveland, Ohio. That's you, Austin. Get ready. Here we go, Austin. Yes. All right, Austin. Good morning. And what is your question for Mr. Fuller? Hang on, Teddy.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Thank you all so much for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Fuller, I was listening to a lecture a very long time ago by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. He said that on both the parts of white people and non-white people, that the denial of racism is essential to its maintenance. And I agree with that statement, absolutely. That's a worldwide absolute. But my question to you, Mr. Fuller, is do you find that statement to be true, or like you say on radio all of the time, do you not mention racism at all until the person brings it up?
Oh, that I say that you don't bring up the subject unless somebody else brings it up?
Yes.
Because people find that the subject is not pleasing. That's the conclusion I come to. That's black people and white people. You start bringing up race, everybody gets uneasy. I mean, that's what I notice.
It's true.
Everybody, in particular, when black people are around white people, everybody starts getting uptight real quick.
Yes.
I mean, there can be a whole lot of talk about other things back and forth and whatnot. I mean, at a baseball game, I mean, everybody's concentrating on what's going on the field and, you know, jumping up and down, the popcorn and the hot dogs and whatnot. And black people talking to white people about different plays that are made and whatnot. But when the subject is race, everybody gets uptight.
Yes.
To use a slang expression. And why? Because nobody, like everything that's a problem, nobody likes to hear about a problem or talk about a problem that just keeps to go on and nobody's coming up with a solution. People are very relaxed when there's a problem and everybody knows what to do about it.
Let me ask this, Mr. Fuller. To your point, Austin, and this is to you, Mr. Fuller. In the movie A Few Good Men, when I think it was Jack Nicholson that he played, was it Jessup? He played
Colonel Jessup.
Colonel Jessup. And a statement was made, you can't handle
the truth.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say that in reference to what Austin, was saying, not bringing that subject up. Is it because, and I'm just asking, is it because they can't handle the truth of racism?
Yes. I mean, the racial element, even in that scene, that particular court scene, I mean, the color thing came up. I mean, remember when Colonel Jessup asked that black judge, said, "What do you want to know now? My favorite color?"
Yeah.
Remember that line? And the Colonel answered somewhere along the lines of, he said, I think you can, I think everybody can address me as Colonel or Sir.
Yeah.
And said, I think I've earned it. That's what Colonel Jessup said.
That's what Colonel Jessup said, yes.
Yeah, and then the black judge said, and you will address the court as whatever he told him to address this court.
And then he said, I know I have earned it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The title of Colonel. All right. And judge.
So Austin, with all this stuff that's going on, the people trying to delete things from books they don't want you to know, would you say that would be similar to what you're speaking about, Austin?
Oh, definitely, absolutely. That's very true, and I say that because, as Mr. Fuller says on radio all of the time, the white supremacists of the world are master experts at deception, so they'll do anything and everything to cover up their tracks, including in the history books as well.
Yes, or what's going on politically in this country. Good question, Austin. Appreciate it. Hey, and don't be a stranger.
Thank you so much.
All righty. Thank you.
Take care.
Yes, sir. All righty. All right, we're going to go down. We're going to go down to Montgomery, Alabama, and listen. Delbert in Texas, we got you, brother. We got you. But right now we're going to go to Teddy Bear. All right, Ted Mann. Go ahead, my brother. Go ahead, speak.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Mr. Fuller and Mr. Bobby. Look,
yes, sir.
As a follow-up to Austin's question, I'd like to ask this then. Are non-white people only allowed to do whatever it is that racism, white supremacy allows it to do, no matter how long it takes to do it?
Good question. Mr. Fuller?
Well, ask it again. Sometimes I don't get it.
Okay, go ahead. Hey, Teddy, go ahead and ask it again.
Okay.
Are non-white
people only allowed to do what racism, white supremacy allows them to do?
Oh, yes.
No matter how long it takes.
Well, how long it takes for the white people allows them to do?
Yes.
Yeah, well, the white supremacists want white supremacy to last forever. That's what that format, and for a logical reason. It works for white people, classified as white. They are born with advantages that people who are non-white do not have. That they got those advantages by practicing racism, which has turned out to be the most powerful political idea and religious idea ever thought up. It's most powerful, most efficient. None of the religions are as powerful as the religion of white supremacy. Religions are pretty strong. You have Islam, you have Christianity, Hinduism, and you have lots of fights and whatnot between all of these factors about religion. But the religion of white supremacy, it is superior in practice to all of the other religions combined. It's the most efficient. Other religions have all kinds of struggles, like Judaism and Islam and Christianity over there and what they call the Holy Land and all like that. The system of white supremacy is a smooth operation.
Very
it's
good.
It's the smoothest of all political systems.
Thank you so very much for answering my questions and still listening and still learning. Thank you.
All right, Teddy in Montgomery. Very good, my brother. Gumptown, yeah. All right, thank you. All righty. Let's see here. Before we get Delbert in here, Mr. Fuller, Freedom Culture, thank you, Freedom Culture. I called in, I guess, a week or two ago. I don't remember, but I was in the second hour and asked about, wait a minute, it just went off the screen, about how to deal with anger. I don't quite remember that. Do you remember that? Or how would you deal, as a suggestion, with anger?
Anger comes from not knowing what to do. And so how do you find out what to do? Universally. Applies to everybody. By asking questions. That's why I say when you're having conversations with people, you stay in the question lane. Just stay away from making statements. When a question is asked and answered, have another question ready if you have one that needs answering. Because of what? A universal law. All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers, including the question, how do you avoid anger? Questions and answers. You latch on to asking questions, you're most likely to be heading in the direction, and I would say guaranteed, of getting answers, because there's an answer to every question. And when you get an answer, and it's a truthful answer, a correct answer. It will overrule anger in the short term or the long term or whatnot, but it'll always do it.
Yes.
Because it's revealing truth. That's how you find the truth.
Exactly.
I said earlier in this program, that's our inventors, which very few people invent anything. But those that do are people that ask questions. Endless. How many questions? Thousands of them. Thousands. If that's necessary to get the answers. Don't put no limit on questions, ever.
Yes.
You're having a conversation, you might have, you might can wrap up the conversation in about 3 minutes because you've got your answers. But if it takes 300 days or 3,000 of them, take it.
Take it, yes.
I remember, all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. Yes. And the more answers you get that reveals truth, the less anger you have.
Yes, sir.
If you don't believe it, try it.
And I use your suggestion, but remembering that suggestion that all problems are solved through questions and answers. And I remember seeing in the Bible that the Bible speaks about be angry, but sin not. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Rather than avoid it, I went and confronted the anger. And I asked, why are you angry? Or what made you get this angry? I confronted that using logic. And I'm still learning, by the way, because anger is going to come. But learning to confront it by asking questions and being logical so that I don't make a mistake that it would be difficult to recover from. That's why I support still learning, because I'm still learning. Anyway, moving right along. Let's go to Texas. And Delbert, oh, man, I've been reading some stuff about that good old state of Texas. All right, Delbert, here we go. Texas, here's Delbert. Delbert, you are on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby.
Yeah,
good morning,
gotcha.
Mr. Fuller.
Okay.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Fuller, can you speak on, you brought up the religions from the areas that's referred to as the Middle East. Recently, the president of Iran was his helicopter crashed, and it's escalating the tensions in that area. But could you discuss how the mess is maintained in the so-called Middle East?
By the white supremacists. I made that conclusion back in the 1950s. Because I remember having a conversation with a black person who was a tailor in the place where I was born. And I was having that Middle East conversation. We were talking about NASA and all this. I never heard of those names, but I was learning. And I came to the conclusion back in the 1950s. I said, what this is really all about, it's about racism, but it's covered up by a whole lot of other talk. I said, but the white supremacists are using this as a perpetual testing ground of how to go about being destructive. The so-called Holy Land, something that nobody would expect. But it's coming to the surface now because nobody wants to go there. Why? People are killing each other, killing babies all over the place and thinking nothing of it. And in the Holy Land, the place that's supposed to be the safest place for everybody in harmony, the place where Jesus walked, and nobody wants to go there. Now, think about that. That's the Holy Land. I mean, more than any other place on earth. When you get there, you breathe a sigh of relief and say, I am in heaven on earth. But that's not what I'm getting over the news. There ain't nowhere near heaven on earth. Now, can anybody explain that? I mean, people are trying to get away from there. All right? And other people are trying to stay and want other people to leave. And you know, and so if I went there, I mean, you know, as a tourist of the Holy Land, do I come there for this, for all of this chaos and all of this killing children that's just being born this morning, and 2 or 3 bullets in their little bodies by that evening. And this is the Holy Land. Well, now, somebody's trying to fool somebody. I mean, because that doesn't add up with me. There's nothing logical about it. Nothing. Nothing logical about none of that. Just to show you how the world is messed up. I hope I'm answering the question. But I'm saying, and I came to the conclusion, I said, this is a setup for all kinds of training grounds, for everything that's about being deceitful and everything about killing. It's just a training ground, a world training ground, that whole area called the Holy Land, for mistreating people.
Mistreating
and
people.
different ways of doing it. That's all this Holy Land thing is about. But they don't call it that. It's just the opposite. Holy Land.
Holy Land.
Yeah, I mean, if it's everywhere in the rest of the world is all messed up. Mm-hmm. But when you come to the Holy Land, that's heaven on earth. That's what's been used as an example. I mean, we say all of our artifacts, all of our statues and all like that is about people being holy. Holy meaning what? People getting along, people in peace, everybody loving everybody. I mean, there's no dissension here.
Yes, sir.
But look at it. Turn on TV right now. It's taking up all the news. The Holy Land will deliver me.
Deliver me. Thank you, Austin in Texas. And keep this in mind as a suggestion. When you go real deep, you'll understand that you are the Holy Land. Got to take a break right here. Thank you, Austin. Got to take a break here. You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and we thank you for listening. We got about a half an hour to go on today's program, being the 21st of May, 2024. If you would like to get in here, you can by calling this number, 516-453-9921. And if you have a question or comment, just press the number 1 button and give the call screener your name when it's your turn, and hopefully I can get to you. You can also join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. You want to click on where it says programs, and when you click that on, the program that you want to stop at is the Produce Justice Show. You click that on, and then that chat room becomes available to you. Lastly, you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, MRBOBBY @gmail.com. I will get it. I will read it and let you know when it will be read across the forum around the whole world. Oh, yes, you will be heard. Books you can get by going to producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com, and there should be no issue there. You can get the book. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's why. And by the way, the person that just get into 438, make sure you give the call screen your name. And Mr. MS, never forget that Mr. Fuller has said whenever you call in, you get the priority status. So you got it. And yes, I did say when you really get into logic, this is my suggestion to you. Wait till you discover that you are the Holy Land. Okay. All right, Mr. Fuller, let's see here. Here is a question that somebody asked you here. This is I won't say it go or repeat, but anyway, it says, Mr. Fuller, I wrote a few weeks back asking about, quote, staying in the question lane, end of quote. I doubted that it was possible to always remain in the question lane. I thought, Mr. Fuller, we would surely have to make statements at some point in time. Mr. Fuller, just double down on your stance that we should remain in the question lane at all times. I'm slowly becoming convinced that it's possible, but it's difficult because I've seen such a conversation. Is there any other way, Mr. Fuller, that you might be able to give examples from your experience how such a conversation would run?
No. Excuse me. It's been my experience, once I latched on that, I just stuck with it. It's possible to not say anything. And when you do say something, it's in the form of a question. To me, it's a simple formula. Don't say anything if you don't know what to say. But anything that you say, make it in the form of a question. Unless you're answering a question now, you can do that, and that will be in the form of a statement. You can just answer the question and answer it truthfully. All right? And you're having a conversation. Now, the reason for that is very scientific, and it works. And that is because it avoids arguments. You have conversation. A conversation is different from an argument. An argument is designed to do what? It's designed to win arguments, which most people are really trying to do when they are having what they call a conversation. Now, a conversation is not designed to win arguments. A conversation is designed to get to the truth of anything. And you do that by questions and answers and solving problems. A conversation, every conversation should be designed to produce a constructive result. Otherwise, stay away from any kind of talk of any kind if you haven't figured out or thought about how you're going to produce a constructive result. Now, everybody, white and black, should learn from that. Just stick with it. If you're going to have this, and when you say constructive result, you mean just that.
Yes, sir.
Solving problems. A conversation, every conversation should be about solving a problem, not making a problem bigger. But most people talk, when they talk, they are making, we just almost brag about it. We are taking a small problem and making it bigger. Doesn't make sense at all.
None.
Just by the conversation, what we're having, or rather the talk. Because it's not a conversation if it doesn't end with a problem being solved constructively. That's how it's supposed to work.
That's how it's supposed to be, yes, sir.
If it enhances conflict, it's not supposed to exist. It makes a small problem bigger. And we're all good at that. I saw some legislators on television just a few days ago. I won't go into details because that's not what it's about. But people were going, now this is legislative time. In other words, these are problem solvers, all right? That's what they were hired for. But they're going back and forth with a whole lot of personal stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not supposed to ever happen under any circumstance. But people enjoy it. Like somebody called it what? The Jerry Springer Show.
Yeah.
And you know what that is.
Oh, boy.
I never saw one of those episodes where I got anything out of it of constructive value. I'm just going to tell it. I mean, I'm looking for something of constructive value.
Okay.
And all I saw was more and more conflict being glorified. It's supposed to be entertainment.
It's supposed to be, yeah.
You don't do anything to glorify conflict.
Okay.
But they have many television shows that do that. Glorifying conflict. People harming each other. Oh, that's fun. There's no such thing as people harming each other, and that's supposed to be fun.
All righty. Before we move on to the new caller and the person in the 11111, that's what it says here. Don't forget to get a call screen, your name. To all of my chatters, check this out. what's going on right before your eyes right now. Check out the Southern Strategy. Yeah, that's right, the Southern Strategy. Get all that information, and you'll see what I'm talking about, the Southern Strategy. Okay, but we're going to go north, I believe, and that's north into Canada. And I believe a new caller alert, we're going to talk with Carl in the still beautiful city of Montreal, Canada. Man, it's a beautiful place up there. Carl, let me see if I can get you. I went to the Habitat in 1967 up there. Beautiful. I don't know if it's still there, but Montreal is out of sight. Carl, are you there?
I'm great. How are you?
Yes, Carl. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I'd like to know, in the past you've said that we could dismantle the system of white supremacy from within. Can you please, can you tell me what you mean by that and be very detailed with your response and give an example of how a person or people dismantle the system of white supremacy from within?
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Well, I don't use the term within or without, whatever that means. I mean, words are important. I just say you have a system of government called the system of white supremacy that should be replaced with a system called justice.
Thank you, Fuller. Thank you.
And what is justice? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Just those two elements. Just guarantee it. What help do you need? Okay, give that person the help that they need. And do it without harming somebody. All right? And how do you do that? Questions and answers. What help do you need? That's a question. And then you go about figuring out how to get it. What do you need? And how do you keep from harming somebody trying to get what a person needs? And you do that through the process of questions and answers. And answer to the question that's being given me. That's how it's done. And you do that by having a code.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say what I said at the beginning of the programs, the 2 hours this morning, and that is universal Social Security. I want that term to be, and we'll call it the Universal Social Security Corps. Universal means it will apply to the whole world. Because with the whole world's participation, it ain't going to work. Because see,
Absolutely.
that's why I don't use that term, this country. The white supremacists ain't thinking about no countries. There ain't no such thing as countries. We got to get that in our heads. Because one thing, we don't know what we're saying, I won't guess. I haven't had anybody explain what this country is. They say this country mistreats black people. Why not just, after questions and answers, just say the white supremacists mistreat black people? Then you don't have what? Confusion. This country, who is this country? Stop and think about what you're saying now. This country, I heard it on this program today. This country.
Sir, it's just
this country.
In the past,
stop and think about what you're saying. This country. What country? What country? Who are you talking about? The world is
in the
made
past,
up
you've
of...
used the term within. Perhaps you no longer use it, but in the past, I've heard you a few times say we could operate from within. WITHIN. So I was interested in you elaborating.
Say that again?
In the past, perhaps you no longer use this term, but in the past you've used the term we could operate from within to dismantle the system. WITHIN, from within. So I wanted you to elaborate on that. But you're saying
yes. Well,
you haven't used it. But
if you don't have countries when you start talking about race. You talk about people.
Okay.
That's where you don't get into this thing about this country with no definition. No definition. Stop and think about what you're saying. What's the definition of this country? No, the system of white supremacy.
Universal.
That's the only government on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not something abstract called this country or the United States. What is a state? A state is a person. Let's get the definitions down. That's in the word guide. S-T-A-T-E is a person. Each person is a state of being.
Definitely.
Now, United States. There are people who are united. If you're helping a person to chop down a tree, you're united while you're chopping down the tree. Now, later on, when you go to the bar and start drinking, you're fighting. You're not united. Same two people. You were united this morning as loggers out there in the forest in chopping down trees. You were united while you were doing that. Same two people now. I don't care what kind of people they are, just two people chopping logs. They're united while they're chopping the logs. Then they go to the beer tavern, like a lot of people who chop logs do, that evening. They call them loggers. And they get to talking and drinking and talking and drinking. Then they get to fighting. Same two people. They're not united. You're united while they're drinking beer, okay? Because there's no hostility there and whatnot, even though the beer might not be doing them very much less constructive, because they wound up on account of the beer fighting when they weren't fighting while they were out there chopping down logs, making logs, rather, from trees. And so that's what I'm talking about, paying attention to every word
paying
that
attention.
you use. Mm-hmm. Paying attention to every word. Every word. Don't skip over nothing. And don't use them just because you've always heard them. I mean, so that's the way that works.
Still learning.
Yes, and that's the way you solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
See, anger and frustration. Frustration means what? And anger. You don't know what to do. That's all that means. That's what makes you angry. That's what makes you frustrated. You don't know what to do.
And this is a perfect segue, Brother Carl, in Montreal. Not to make a plug, but this is important that you have to have a code. Mm-hmm. And that code can be found in the book that Mr. Fuller has written called The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept that you can get by going to producejustice.com. And Carl, when you open up that book to the very first page, this is what it says, even on this program. It says, if you do not understand white supremacy, racism, which he has in parentheses, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. He says it in this book and on every program that he and I have done, or him and me, whatever you have done, and it is important. And then you'll hear the term still learning, because we all are. Listen, Carl, gotta go, but as I tell all of the first-time callers, do not be a stranger. Thank you, Brother Carl. All righty. Here he is, my man, down in Texas, down in Dallas. I spoke to my daughter this morning in Dallas. DFW, Dallas, Fort Worth. I just love airports. Anyway, two-question Ray. Ray, you got the whole world right now. Go ahead, bro.
Hello, Mr. Bobby, and hello, Mr. Fuller. I have a question, and it's centered around a compensatory remark that was made by Dr. Wilson, and also a compensatory remark that was made by Mr. Fuller. It may also be related to the previous caller's question. In times past, Dr. Wilson has said that we have been lied to. We have been told that we are living in a democracy with imperfections, but in reality, we are living in a perfected system of racism, white supremacy. Mr. Fuller, in the 1984 edition of the Code on page 334, you say that the seeds of the destruction of racism, white supremacy are implanted in the very existence of racism itself. And so my question is, if this is indeed a perfected system, then how are the seeds of destruction inside of this system if it has been perfected?
Because the laws of the universe, and this is a concept, which is in the title of the textbook. The codified concept is, well, you can only work with what is in existence. So when you're try to find out through trying to find out how to solve a problem, and all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers, you are using the same tools, and this is laws of the universe now, to produce a product that you weren't producing before. So in order to produce justice, you use the tools that you have. And it's the same tools. You just rearrange the tools that you have. You have to have the tools in order to use them. So what the code does, code is just made up of what? Words. So you take the same words and give them new definitions, or you use the definitions that are already there, if they do what? Produce constructive results. Now, you don't have to change the definitions of those. And that's the way that works. You're using what is here. You can't use what's not here. So the system of white supremacy is here. So you have to use that same system, like the antidote to a poison is in the poison itself. That's why people give what you call, if I understand it correctly in medicine, they say we have COVID-19. So we're going to put some of the COVID in you to build up immunity from the COVID. That's what I heard about pneumonia and everything. You actually, when you get what they call a vaccination, that's what it's for.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking the germ and putting it in you, but you're doing it in a different way. And because you're using the same words, because the system of white supremacy was put together by words and violence. But you use counter-violence sparingly. It's how you use violence. That's why it's called counter-violence.
Yeah.
You're using violence to get rid of violence. Like the person who is what you call active shooter, which is a peculiar term, by the way. I guess all shooters are active. There couldn't be shooters, whatever that means. But I didn't invent that term, so I don't know how to explain that. Active shooter. Anybody who's shooting at you, I mean, that's some action. You better believe it. That's how I look at somebody shooting at me if I walk out here today, which is very likely to happen because people are shooting everywhere. Yeah. Seems like everybody's got a gun, looking for a reason to shoot it at people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I hope that answers the question. It's built in. It's built into the system. Because what else have you got to build it on? There's no such thing as an outside system. It's just an idea of another system, and that system can grow, but you get all the materials out of the system that is in order and shouldn't be in order to make a system that should be out of the same materials.
Okay.
Words
all right.
to start with.
Did that answer that question for you, Ray?
Yes, sir. Is there enough time for one brief question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Fuller, on page 104 of the 1984 edition, you say that racist man and racist woman construct, define, redefine, and use all words and or the meanings of all words in such manner that they promote and or justify the condition of white supremacy racism and or the deeds of white supremacists. My question is, logical to suspect that the white supremacists will continue to compensate for the compensation used by victims of white supremacy through the use of the languages that are allowed to be utilized?
Yes. See, words are nothing but tools, like a pair of pliers. You're trying to accomplish something. Black people don't have anything where our words are used to do anything of constructive value. We got a lot of words that do things that are destructive, and the words that we choose to use are usually destructive language. We make jokes about harming people. We've been trained that way.
Yes.
Making jokes about people being harmed. And we think that's natural. It's not natural.
No,
We're
sir.
taught that. And so you make jokes about people being harmed, you're likely to do what? Harm people. That's your way of living. Figuring out some way to harm somebody rather than help somebody. That's why my proposed universal Social Security says, hey, health, a healthy mind to start with.
Yes.
That's at the top of the list. Health, more than anything. All right, for a person to be healthy in body, they have to be healthy in mind, which means health means healing. That's what the reparations should be about. Healing all
healing,
people.
Yeah. All righty. Thank you. 2-question, Ray. Appreciate it. You got it in. All righty. Well, we're getting ready to wrap it up. So let me first of all say thank you to Robert, Sharon, Moon Pie, and all the staff, the Gatewood Brothers, and that I forgot the name of the marketing company, but thank you guys. Thank you for all the calls, your comments. Thank you to chatters in the on the Facebook, in the chat room. Thank you for your good conversations in there. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Don't forget that all the book can be obtained by going to producejustice.com. That's your assignment. Make sure that you read something in there and learn something in there. And while you're at it, don't forget the Southern strategy. Know that stuff. I have to use that word. Can't say the other word. Know that stuff. What's going on. And the last word, Mr. Fuller, is going to go to you for this program. What is it for you, Mr. Fuller?
Well, we need to repair. We need reparations, but that means reparations for everybody. And if you're going to really do a repair job that's not going to fall apart and, almost immediately not down the road, you already know that. You already know that. Now, those who have chosen to get into a long, eternal squabble between white people and non-white people, you're not repairing nothing.
Okay.
In my opinion, if you're going to hand out cash the black people for what we call slavery.
20 seconds. Go ahead.
And put it in that context. I mean, that's sloppy. That is one of the sloppiest proposals ever made. But it should be on the docket that those who want it will get it. But once they get it, don't come back for nothing.
ProduceJustice.com.
Because you have shown that you know what to do. Right.
Gotta go, everybody. Hopefully you all have a good week. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. All right, ProduceJustice.com.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.